This scene made Qin Feng stunned for a long time. When he killed Qin Xiaoyu, he also heard a system prompt. You killed Xiaoyu and imposed the Mark of Tyrone 3 on him. Qin Feng subconsciously checked. He found that Qin Xiaoyu's real location was in Zhenghai City, at the former gymnasium. It is said that this place is where the Zhenghai official extracted the church sanctuary, and her location in the game has always been in the dark space, which is the waiting space when logging in and out, belonging to the sandwich between reality and the game. Generally, when a player dies, he will be resurrected at the resurrection point after 3 seconds. What's wrong with her? Did she choose to log off right after she died and stay in the waiting space? Qin Feng frowned. It's not that he is interested in Qin Xiaoyu, but the current situation really makes him a little confused. If you want to talk about tests and challenges, this so-called fair challenge is not difficult, if I understand correctly. Then the difficulty of this challenge is only the 8 options at the beginning. If you can't accurately locate the group of guilty people, it is easy to kill or miss the wrong person. But why are the others illusion, and only Qin Xiaoyu is real? With such questions, Qin Feng looked up at the white jade platform in the middle. Kill all the guilty people. Fair trial challenge completed. Accompanied by a system prompt, a treasure chest emitting gray-white light appeared on the platform. It looked plain, but Qin Feng knew. Gray-white. That is the original primary. The things in the treasure chest are definitely better than mythical, ancient, an immortal thing. Is it related to the power of judgment? Qin Feng guessed secretly. He glanced at the place where Qin Xiaoyu died. Her body had disappeared, leaving only a ball of lifelight remaining in the field. Qin Feng raised his hand to absorb the lifelight ball. 60 years of life had been lost. Did you get this from Chen Wuming? Qin Feng shook his head. He wrote Osiris and flew back to the white jade platform, seeing the judge Ashasis in white robes appear again. Her figure was still as sacred and noble as before, but she still bowed slightly to Qin Feng. Qin Feng had many questions to ask, but he didn't know the ancient language, so he didn't know how to ask. Fortunately, Ashasis seemed to understand his questions. The elegant and sacred woman in white robes, with a slight smile on her lips, looked at Qin Feng with a pair of light golden eyes, and murmured, "Hair. Do you have many questions?" It's a bit troublesome to explain, so I won't explain it. Open the treasure chest. Inside is a small gift secretly brought to you according to the rules of the godforsaken game. There is an instruction manual on how to use it. Ashasis bowed slightly and looked at Qin Feng with a smile. Qin Feng thought he could get some answers from her, but reality gave him a loud slap in the face. Don't explain if it's too much trouble. Okay. I know you think I don't understand the ancient language, right? Qin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but Ashashis's last words still made him understand a little. In the god-abandoned game, NPCs and other creatures, if they want to put items in the abandoned land of the gods, they need to abide by the rules. As an ancient god's messenger, it's not easy for Ashashis to come down by herself. You have to bring me something, so you can only do it through the rules of the game. That is, the mode of issuing tasks, completing tasks, getting rewards. So this challenge is actually her bringing me a gift. So she just set up a task. Of course, there must be a reason why this challenge is called an internship trial. Everything depends on the little gift in the treasure chest. Qin Feng stepped forward and opened the treasure chest. In the treasure chest, a ball of gray-white light gathered towards his hand, surrounded him, and finally gathered into the shape of a short-bladed dagger in his hand. You have obtained the Blade of Judgment, formerly primary divine armament. Blade of Judgment. Qin Feng was a little surprised. Could this be the exclusive weapon of the ancient god of judgment? The reason why it is in the form of a dagger is because he is an assassin. If he is another profession, such as a magician, then the gray-white light may form a staff or a magic book. The shape is not important. The key is what is the use of this weapon. Han Feng stood up, check its properties. Blade of Judgment, divine armor. Grade, primary. Basic properties. Physical attack power, +8. Elemental attack power, +8. All properties, +8. Cooling speed, +8%. Attack speed, +88%. Hit correction, +88%. Divinity, +10. Special effective rules. There is an independent space, Land of Judgment, inside. Killing any target with this blade can consume 10 points of divinity and teleport the target to the Land of Judgment. Sinner Judgment. Judge the sinners in the Land of Judgment. After a successful trial, the divinity limit and basic properties of this weapon will be increased. Blessed Judgment. Unlocked when the divinity limit reaches 10,000 points. It is indeed a divine weapon. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. Divine armor. He had obtained it in his previous life. It sounds very strong, and in fact it is indeed very strong. At least mythical equipment can give birth to divine weapons, and they all carry various super strong rule powers. For example, this Blade of Judgment, when killing the target, can teleport the target to the Land of Judgment, instead of letting the target die or revive. This is a kind of rule, which is a revision and supplement to the rules of the God-abandoned game itself, and will take precedence over the rules of the God-abandoned game itself. It sounds very grand. In fact, in human terms, it is cheating. Why did Qin Feng rank among the top 100 in the world in his previous life? One of the important reasons is that he has a mythical divine weapon, which allows him to not lose blood when attacked when the special effects are turned on, and is completely immune to the influence of all upper level affixes. Although the grade is not as good as the original primary Blade of Judgment, it is also truly invincible. No matter how advanced the dispel is, it cannot dispel its status, because this is a modification of the game mechanism. Of course, this cheat is not random. If you want to modify the rules of the God-Forsaken game, you need to consume divinity. The essence of divinity can be understood as a kind of energy at the rule level. Any rules and orders in the universe require divinity to drive. How to restore the consumed divinity? There is only one way, Krypton life. Some divine weapons can replenish 1 point of divinity by absorbing 10 years of life, but some divine weapons need 20 years, 30 years, or even 100 years. This is related to the quality of the divine weapons. Whether the divine weapons are strong or not depends on the rule effects on the one hand, and the absorption rate of life conversion to divinity on the other hand. So far, Qin Feng has learned that the divinity on the divine weapons can only be used, not owned by oneself. Obtaining divine weapons is only the first step for players to become gods. The most important thing after that is to integrate the divinity on the equipment into oneself. Make oneself a carrier of divinity. Qin Feng does not know the specific method. In fact, in the previous life, only a few people succeeded in the 9 years of Blue Star and set foot on the Land of Order. Qin Feng is only ranked in the top 100, not the top 10. And he really can't reach this level? You know, the higher the global ranking, the greater the gap. Let's not talk about anything else for now. What's the use of this Judgment Blade, which pulls people into the Land of Judgment? Qin Feng was actually still a little confused, helplessly. He had to look at the instruction manual attached to the treasure chest. There are 2 more chapters, to be sent before 12 o'clock. The following 3 chapters introduce the Judgment Authority and ancient divine language. If you don't want to read, don't understand, you can skip it without affecting your reading. It was a piece of parchment that looked very old. Qin Feng took it out of the treasure chest and found that it was written with dense Daxia characters. Is this the instruction manual prepared specifically for me? Qin Feng glanced at it. Soon, he frowned. On this parchment, first of all, there was a simple instruction on the use of the Judgment Authority. Regarding the use of authority, not only the Judgment Authority, but also all the authority in the universe, all are subject to some kind of broad restrictions. The so-called broad restrictions, in layman's term, are that authority is a range attack that affects the entire universe, all time and space, and all dimensions. Is it so high profile? Qin Feng was a little shocked. For example, if he were to launch a trial against Qin Xiaoyu, then the Judgment Authority would launch a trial against all Qin Xiaoyu in the entire universe. And how many Qin Xiaoyu are there in the universe? Not only the Blue Star civilization, but also other civilizations. As long as the organisms whose names and pronunciations are consistent with Qin Xiaoyu will be included. There is even the current Qin Xiaoyu, Qin Xiaoyu 1 second ago, Qin Xiaoyu 2 seconds ago, and even the future Qin Xiaoyu. It is impossible to accurately specify a certain Qin Xiaoyu to launch a trial. For example, Han Feng wants to judge the person in front of him. Then the authority of judgment will be directly understood as the person in front of the eyes. Even if it is 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers in front of the eyes, even if there is a person at the end of the universe, it will be included in the scope of judgment. Even the people in front of Qin Feng's eyes in each time period will be counted. It was in front of me a day ago, but not in front of me now. It will also be included in the scope of judgment. All this is because the authority of judgment is the oldest and most real authority in the universe. Once it is launched, it will definitely be a terrifying means to strike the entire universe. This is the broad limit, defined by the ancient gods, shared by all authorities in the universe. Because of this, before launching the authority, the target of trial must be anchored. For example, add a prefix to the word Qin Xiaoyu, Qin Xiaoyu, who is on Earth. Now, by limiting the time, place, or other conditions, the Qin Xiaoyu that Qin Feng wants to judge can be accurately located. But the key is, each time these limiting prefix words are added, they will be screened across the entire universe when the authority is launched. The more prefix words are added, the more divinity is consumed to launch the authority, and it even grows exponentially. And vague concepts like Earth are also problematic, because as long as one person calls the moon Earth, the moon will be classified as Earth when the authority is launched. In the final analysis, Earth is just a name for the planet where most Blue Star humans are, and it cannot be accurately designated as a certain space in the universe. So if we limit it according to the above 3 conditions, assuming that there are 100 Earths and 100 Qin Xiaoyu in the universe, after screening these 2 conditions, it will take 10 thousand times more divinity to activate the authority. Add to that the vague concept of time defined by the Blue Star humans, then Qin Feng will never be able to launch this trial in his lifetime, because of insufficient divinity. That's why there are the Blade of Judgment and the Land of Judgment. These 2 are tools that facilitate me to launch a trial on one or some specific targets. The Land of Judgment is also called the Anchor Point. Through the description on the parchment, Qin Feng learned that the Land of Judgment is an absolutely still place in space and time, and is unique in the entire universe and time and space. So in terms of space and time, directly giving a limiting condition, being in the Land of Judgment can achieve it. In essence, the Blade of Judgment is equivalent to a remote control for the authority of judgment. If we compare the power of judgment to an air conditioner, I don't need to learn how to cool the air conditioner, I just need to use the remote control. Qinfeng can quickly and easily activate the power of judgment by using the Blade of Judgment. Then I understand. The challenge of the Judgment Land this time is a complete demonstration to me of how to anchor the judgment target. Assume that the person to be judged this time is Qin Xiaoyu. Nah. First, pull her into the Judgment Land and add the prefix located in the Judgment Land. Second, design a small game activity and add the prefix participate in this activity. Third, add the suffix the fugitive defined by this activity to the trial target. Among them, the place of trial is unique. This activity also specifically refers to this kind of small game activity of 20 fugitives and 80 pursuers held in the place of trial. And 99 of them are fake bodies and illusions. Since the place of trial is unique, this activity is also unique. Finally, the suffix the fugitive defined by this activity directly points the trial target to the only real person among the 20 fugitives, Qin Xiaoyu, while being able to accurately anchor the trial target. Since all three judgment conditions are unique, the divinity required to activate the judgment authority is very small. In summary, a name like Qin Xiaoyu cannot be used as a trial target, because the target referred to by this name is not unique once these three words are in the trial target. All Qin Xiaoyu in the universe will be screened when the authority is activated, thereby consuming a huge amount of divinity. In the final analysis, this is a logic game. It's a bit like code. From another perspective, the universe has its own laws. Authority is the application of the original rules of the universe, and naturally it has its own laws. Just like giving someone a nuclear bomb, it is impossible to blast it out with just a mouth. You must first learn how to operate and locate it. Even if Qinfeng has the authority of judgment, there is a threshold to use it. In particular, to save divinity, you need to pay attention to methods. What is the Blade of Judgment? Pulling people into the place of judgment, designing small games, and defining the identities of each participant as a pursuer or a fugitive. Everything is to reduce the divinity consumed by launching authority. However, from another perspective, it is necessary to use various means to anchor the judgment target in this way, mainly because of insufficient divinity. If I have enough divinity, I can initiate judgment on anyone at any time. Any time and anywhere, even on a civilization, or on all life in the universe. This is the authority of the ancient gods? What really makes Qinfeng feel that the thing called authority is bottomless is, all of the above things are only used to determine the target of the trial. The more complicated things are still to come. That is, the content and results of the trial of the target. In theory, after truly mastering the authority of trial, you can launch a trial at any time, any place, and against any target. And the essence of the trial is to consume divinity and settle the target's behavior. There are two results of the settlement. One is punishment. The other is blessing. By punishing the sinner, Qinfeng can harvest some energy from them, thereby stacking the divinity limit and basic attributes of the Blade of Judgment. And to bless people, you need to consume divinity. What shocked Qinfeng was his rebirth, and his original primary talent came from the blessing judgment of the judgment authority on him. As long as he fully grasps the judgment authority, he can consume divinity and add various plugins to himself. Even the original primary talent is just one of them. This is the definition of a god. What if I add 10, 100, or even more original primary talents to myself? How will you deal with it? After learning all this, Qinfeng felt a little numb, harvesting through the judgment of sinners, and then adding plugins to yourself. Is this the ultimate function of the judgment authority? Then the question is, how did such a heaven-defying ancient god of judgment end up like this? This question is extremely scary, if you think about it carefully. But it is obvious. Qinfeng is not qualified to think about this level of problems now, just to truly master the power of judgment. The difficulty is so high that it is completely unimaginable. Add plugins to yourself. How to add? What kind of plugins to add? These all involve the deeper laws of the universe. Qinfeng looked at the parchment in his hand. The essence of the universe follows the conservation of energy and equivalent exchange to a certain extent, and the blessing judgment is also the same. Why is it to a certain extent? Are there any exceptions? Qinfeng now certainly can't understand it. But he knows that whether it is his rebirth or his original primary talent, infinite evolution, these are not out of thin air, but the power of judgment. Through the blessing judgment on him, and a series of complex universe-level calculations, conditions, processes, losses, Qinfeng knows nothing. But now I don't need know so much. I just need to know that I can kill people, drag them into the land of judgment, and then judge the target, thereby increasing the divinity limit and attributes of the Blade of Judgment. In this process, Qinfeng can slowly feel and understand the power of judgment. Qinfeng put away the Blade of Judgment and replaced the diamond-level equipment Skeleton Thorn on his body. Directly dual-wield Tyrone III Maker, Killing Starblade, and Blade of Judgment. This Blade of Judgment, to some extent, can be regarded as my exclusive weapon, right? Next, I just need to infinitely stack the divinity limit and basic attributes of the Blade of Judgment. After all, Qinfeng had come into contact with divinity in his previous life, knowing that this is equivalent to the blue bar of the gods. Naturally, The higher the better. But Qinfeng thought of Qin Xiaoyu, who had just been killed, and glanced at the place where Qin Xiaoyu was killed. Has she been judged? It seems like you don't feel anything. Ashashi looked at Qinfeng and seemed to sense his doubts. She smiled slightly and looked at him with her pale golden eyes. Here, the power of judgment is only yours. The blade of judgment is just an auxiliary. You didn't activate the power of judgment, so she was naturally not judged? Hearing this, Qinfeng was confused. I'm stupid. I didn't get the blade of judgment when I just killed her. Without the blade of judgment, I don't have divinity. How can I activate the power without divinity? Qinfeng held his forehead. Ashashi smiled. Here, don't worry. Qin Xiaoyu, in this life, has not made too many mistakes. Even if you judge her, you will hardly benefit. This surprised Qinfeng a little. He asked tentatively, does it mean that the greater the sinner's mistakes, the more the blade of judgment will be improved after my judgment? He said this subconsciously in Daxia language. After saying that, he realized that this judge didn't know the Daxia language. But what he didn't expect was that Ashashi smiled faintly and answered in Daxia. To some extent, you are right. Qinfeng's eyes widened. Can you speak Daxia? Ashashi sighed and looked at him with a caring look. I didn't know it before. But can I learn it if I don't know it? That's right. Qinfeng was a little embarrassed. The higher the spiritual attribute, the stronger the memory and comprehension ability will be for a being like Ashashi's. Learning a new language is too easy. When I first met her, she had just arrived, and it was normal that she didn't know Daxia. But if she still can't speak it after so long, it would be an insult to her IQ. Qinfeng was a little helpless. In that case, did you pull her in this time, just to be my teaching material? Ashashi nodded and shook her head. She said, on the one hand, we use her as an example. On the other hand, she touched the eye of judgment in her previous life and even tried to plunder, which is a crime of blasphemy. You will have a very rich harvest if you judge the blasphemer. Qinfeng was a little skeptical. Then you also said that it was something she did in her previous life. It's useless for me to judge her in this life, right? Ashaxi said slowly. So, she will appear here just now. I gave her a small gift. Qinfeng was stunned. Qin Xiaoyu also has a small gift, but it is obvious that this gift is not that gift. Those who blaspheme the gods will be judged. Ashashi's pale golden eyes moved over Qinfeng. I sent her memories of her last life into her dreams. When she dies in this life, her memories of her last life will be fully awakened. At that time, she can be regarded as Qin Xiaoyu in her last life and handed over to you for judgment. Fuck. Can it be like this? Qinfeng was a little dumbfounded. The memories of the last life were sent to Qin Xiaoyu's dream? Does this count as Qin Xiaoyu's rebirth? Ashashi's bowed slightly and continued. Before she dies in this life, she will only dream of fragmented scenes related to you at most, which will not have much impact on your world. Qinfeng asked, can't we let her not dream of anything? This situation always feels weird. Ashashi shook her head and said meaningfully, in the last moments of her life in the last life, the memory of you was too deep. Qinfeng frowned. What does this mean? Qin Xiaoyu in the previous life was always thinking about him before she died. When you found out that you were deceived by Songfei, did you regret it before you died? Qinfeng thought calmly. He knew that when he died, the God-slaying guild would not last long. Not to mention Qin Xiaoyu. He just didn't know how long this woman would last after he died. Qinfeng shook his head. There was no need to think too much about the things in the previous life. He just said to Ashashi's, even if you say so, I can't take the initiative to kill her. After all, she really didn't do anything in this life. According to Ashashi's, there is no benefit in judging Qin Xiaoyu in this life. Qinfeng can't suddenly run over and kill Qin Xiaoyu. If he really wanted to kill her, he would have killed her long ago, and he wouldn't have waited until now. Qinfeng now just regards Qin Xiaoyu as a stranger. If he wants to judge her, he will wait until she dies in this life. Successor. That's your choice. Ashashi's bowed and smiled slightly, saying, I am your messenger of God and will not interfere with any of your decisions. However, it's time for you to learn some ancient God language. In the future, you need to better master and use authority, and the ancient God language is the foundation. After saying this, Ashashi casually threw her hand. A divine book fell into Qinfeng's hands. Qinfeng looked closely. Divine book ancient, divine language classics. The introduction of this divine book reads, through this divine book, 247, 1,000 ancient divine language teaching books can be made from major civilizations in the universe, painstakingly made. After reading all of them, you will be the ancient divine language master. More than 247,000 books. Good. At the same time, Qin Xiaoyu, who was killed in the land of judgment, fell into a coma. The fragments and memories from her previous life appeared in her mind like a passing glance, as if she was dreaming. In these memories, there is no other person. Anything else? Some only happened when the God-forsaken game came. Qinfeng took care of her and protected her all the way, even if she was a bad player. He would try his best to take her with him when he killed the epic boss for the first time to gain reputation. But the strange thing is that when she wanted to recall those epic bosses, other team players, and other guild members, there was no picture at all. Originally, these memories were nothing special. It was just the daily life of a powerful man's pampered sister. But the key is, what kind of life did Qin Xiaoyu live in this life? She was madly despised when she formed a wild team, was madly killed in seconds when she fought the boss, was bullied when she joined the guild, and finally had her legs sawed off by a murderer, becoming a cripple. Compared to the days in the memory fragments, it was simply a paradise and a hell. And in the end, the most unforgettable picture appeared in her dream. She dug out Qinfeng's eyes with her own hands. Don't worry. Brother Song Fei said he would find you a new eye. As long as you don't stop us from being together. She turned and left happily. Wow. Qin Xiaoyu suddenly woke up and opened her eyes. She stared blankly at the white walls of the ward around her, at her empty legs. For a long time, tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. I really want to go to that world, where Qinfeng is not only there, but Brother Song Fei is not dead either, and I can live happily with my brother? Unfortunately, it's a dream. Wait. That skill. Qin Xiaoyu recalled a skill in the memory fragment, and her heartbeat gradually accelerated. It seemed to be a skill that could regenerate a broken limb. It seemed that she had a finger bitten off by a monster, and then Qinfeng asked someone to come and help her use the skill to heal her, so that she could grow a finger again. But the memory was a little fuzzy, and she sighed quickly. It's just a dream. It's all fake. If you bite off a finger in the game, it will regenerate when you revive. As for the real world, where are the monsters? Qin Xiaoyu sat on the bed in a daze. But she didn't know that when the first desolation spread, monsters would appear in reality. I emphasize again, I won't whitewash it. When Qin Xiaoyu regarded all that as a dream, Qinfeng continued to learn more about the Blade of Judgment in the place of judgment. At present, with my ability, I can't customize the judgment result at all. So, the Blade of Judgment comes with a default judgment result. That is illusionary reincarnation. The so-called illusionary reincarnation is to let the judged sinners be in an illusion and experience their sins repeatedly and indefinitely until death. For example, those who dismembered and killed others will be dismembered in the illusion. For example, those who dig out people's eyes will be digged out in the illusion. This is the simplest judgment result. It's equivalent to an assembly line. I don't need to consider the principle or the process as long as I launch the judgment. The target will fall into the punishment of illusionary reincarnation. The role of the Blade of Judgment highlights simple and efficient. In Qinfeng's eyes, from now on, every target who enters the judgment land and is judged by him is equivalent to a workpiece placed on the assembly line. They just need to accept the judgment and punishment step by step and provide rewards to Qinfeng. If you don't consider the principle of the activation of authority, it is still quite simple to operate. But if you think about the principle, Qinfeng can only say, sorry, I don't deserve it. At least not for the time being. At this time, Ashaksisi was kneeling on her knees, translating books for him beside him. Just now, Qinfeng consumed a small amount of life and produced 10 books on the ancient divine language through the Book of Divine Gift. These teaching books of the ancient divine language are all recorded in other civilized languages. So, Ashaksisi is translating for him. After the translation is completed, Qinfeng will take these 10 ancient divine language books back to check and study. Qinfeng sat cross-legged in front of Ashaksisi. There was a hint of curiosity in Ashashi's pale golden eyes. Here, how well do you know the ancient divine language? I can't memorize it all. Qinfeng shook his head and said, it is said that this ancient divine language has tens of thousands of symbols or fonts, and they are all three-dimensional, one more complex than the other. Even if the spiritual attribute is high, it is difficult to memorize it completely. In fact, Qinfeng has always been puzzled. The ancient divine language is so complicated that it is difficult to use for complex communication. You know, any modern language is as simple as possible as long as it can express the meaning. But the ancient divine language is completely the opposite, which makes Qinfeng confused. Ashashi was silent for a moment. After a moment, she said, in fact, the ancient language is not the language in the concept of you Blue Star people. To be precise, it is a symbol creation rule invented by the ancient gods to facilitate the use of authority. If it is described in Daxia language, there are two types of ancient language. One is false language and the other is true language. Among them, false language is mainly used for daily communication and can be used by anyone. And true language is mainly used to activate order, rules, and authority, and only life forms with divinity are qualified to use it. At present, you don't need to understand true language, just learn false language. Qinfeng listened to this, a little dissatisfied. He said, no, I want to understand the true language. As long as I learn the true language of the ancient language, can I directly activate the authority without going through the Blade of Judgment? Ashashi looked at him strangely, a little helpless. Here, I really can't stand you. You are right. Learning the true language can directly initiate the judgment. But the true language of the ancient divine language is not the tens of thousands of types you said, but infinite. The so-called true language is the unique characters created by people with divinity based on false language through specific rules, as long as it is within the scope of the rules. The characters you create are all a kind of ancient divine language, and they are unique and can be used to refer to something. For example, if I say the name of this book is one, then the one in the ancient divine language refers to this book. No one else can use one to name or refer to anything else, but can only use der one, the one, and so on. Now, here, you have this book, Ashashi said as she gently handed the book in her hand to Qinfeng. If you know its name is one, then you can call it one, which is a unique name in the universe. But if you don't know its name, you can create an ancient divine language character to name it, such as two. From now on, 1 and 2 both represent this book. Book, and only represents this book. Of course, this is just an explanation for your understanding. The real truth characters contain 2 core information, space and time, and each truth character is unique. Qin Feng frowned and found that things were not simple. Listening to your words is like listening to your word. Ashashi looked at his expression, was silent for a moment, and then said, let me put it another way. For example, in Daxia language, cat represents a creature. The character cat is a false word in Daxia language, and the true word is to modify the character cat. For example, add a dot to the lower right corner of the word cat, and this new character can be used specifically to represent a specific stray black cat in Daxia, Zhanghai City. Add 2 dots to the lower right corner of the word cat, and it can be used to represent another domestic white cat in North America. So, there are hundreds of millions of true language characters derived from the false word cat alone, and each new character represents every specific cat on the blue planet. Even if we add the judgment of time, the number cannot be measured by hundreds of millions. After saying this, Qin Feng and Ashashi looked at each other, big eyes to small eyes. After a long time, Qin Feng blurted out a sentence. Oh, there are hundreds of millions of ways to write cat, right? Ashashi tilted her head, a little puzzled. After all, she had never seen Kong Yiji. But anyway, after Ashashi's 2 analogies, Qin Feng finally had some concept of ancient divine language and true language. In short, as long as I learn the true language of the ancient divine language. When I want to judge a person, I can create a unique true language character for him on the spot in the entire universe. This true language character will include all detailed information such as space, time, species, morphology, age, etc. Isn't this just making a unique QR code? The difference is that this true language character is 3-dimensional, so just treat it as a 3-dimensional code. In this way, using this unique character to launch a judgment only consumes a little bit of divinity, because the authority only needs to be uniquely determined once. Damn it! Isn't this just the ancient gods catching a bug? In order to save the consumption of divinity when using authority, a set of symbol creation rules was created. I don't know if you can accept the settings in the recent chapters. The author originally wanted to set a threshold for the use of authority and give authority a specific definition, rather than a vague description like destroying billions of universes at will. Normally, this kind of worldview setting is not thrown out until the late stage. It is released in advance to set a framework for yourself, so as not to break down later. The next chapter will return to the story. If the big guys don't understand it, it's okay. You can ignore these chapters and continue to read the story QAQI. Of course, this kind of rule is not defined casually by people or gods. It is generated according to certain laws of the universe. Only in this way can each generated true language symbol be guaranteed to be unique and unrepeatable. Just like pi. I use 314 to represent the first cat, 141 to represent the second cat, and 1415 to represent the third cat. Endless. It's like Bitcoin, which is based on certain natural laws rather than artificial issuance. Everyone who understands its rules can participate in it, and each Bitcoin is unique. This is the wisdom of the ancient gods. As for what specific rules the ancient language uses to extend and create characters, Qin Feng doesn't know, and Qin Feng looked at his attribute list and saw a Yi Fao symbol in the occupation column. Qin Feng couldn't help asking, then, is my professional symbol also a true language symbol of the ancient god language? Ashaksisi smiled slightly and nodded. Yes. However, what you can see is only the simple form of the true language symbol. In fact, this symbol also has information about space, time, and other aspects. When you master specific rules in the future, you will be able to view the complete form of this symbol. Qin Feng's eyes lit up. Doesn't that mean that after I unlock the blessing judgment, I can directly use this symbol to judge myself anytime and anywhere and add plugins to myself? Ashaksisi showed a teachable look and chuckled. Of course you can. Qin Feng imagined it. When he fully mastered the ancient god's true language and the authority of judgment, what would the complete body look like? Directly create a 3-dimensional code, ancient god true language symbol to define a person, a city, or even a civilization. Drag it into the abyss of judgment and harvest life and divinity. When he harvests enough divinity, he can bless himself and add more plugins to himself. Of course, the future is beautiful, but the process is tortuous. Whether it is the ancient god language, the rules of the universe, or the authority of the ancient gods, they are not what Qin Feng can master now. Now I can only use the remote control in my hand, Blade of Judgment, find sinners, judge sinners, and increase the divinity limit of the Blade of Judgment. Before leaving, Qin Feng asked Ashashi's the last question. Is the authority of judgment just a tool? If this Blade of Judgment falls into the hands of others, can it also activate the authority of judgment? In response, Ashashi just smiled and shook her head. Authority is the most fundamental core rule in the universe. Now that the authority of judgment has chosen you, only you can use it. It is a rule power that belongs to you alone. Now you just don't have enough divinity to drive this power, and you haven't learned how to use this power. Qin Feng understood it after saying that. Okay, I'll go first. He nodded. Took 10 translated HMMF. ancient god books from Ashes. He had to learn the false language in the ancient god language first, at least to be able to communicate in the ancient god language. To be honest, if it weren't for Ashes, Qin Feng would have no place to get learning materials about the ancient god language. Blue Star is still too backward in the entire universe. And when Qin Feng disappeared from this judgment place, the judgment envoy Ashes, still wearing a white robe, kneeled on the white jade platform like a stone statue, guarding this judgment place. The ruins of the Demon City, the Evil Spirit Academy. Qin Feng returned from the judgment place and found that it seemed like half an hour had passed. This made Qin Feng a little confused. Isn't the judgment place a place where time is absolutely still? How come half an hour has passed inside and half an hour has passed outside? Qin Feng couldn't figure it out, so he simply didn't think about it. I have already grown my brain today, and I can't grow anymore. So he looked at the judgment blade in his hand and couldn't wait to find a lucky sinner to see how much the judgment blade's attributes could be improved. However, judgment consumes divinity, and divinity is lifespan. To spend divinity on the blade, you have to find a truly heinous criminal. The so-called sin is different from the crime in the conventional sense, in Qin Feng's understanding. It is an act that brings negative emotions to others. From this perspective, Qin Feng himself is a big sinner, but he is fearless. Anyway, no one can come to judge him. In short, I cannot eat beef, but you can't. Qin Feng thought of Qin Xiaoyu, but quickly put her behind his mind. She is not worth judging now. When she commits suicide and her memory of the previous life awakened, Qin Feng will take action against her. In this case, I can only ask the authorities if there are any criminals who defy the law recently. Qin Feng opened his friend list. After thinking about it, he sent a private message to An Yu, Wang Ye, Wei Yu, and Yi Lu Yan at the same time, asking them if there are any major criminals recently and letting him deal with them, facing Qin Feng's private message. The three women obviously took it very seriously and all replied immediately. Wang Ye, Wei Yu, there is a criminal who killed a whole family, but he has been shot dead during the arrest. I will give you a list of other criminals. Yi Lu Yan, there are still many murders recently. Boss, wait a minute. I will ask the higher-ups for a list. Finally, An Yu replied, yes, there are many young and beautiful girls have disappeared in Zhanghai recently. According to the on-site investigation, they should have been forced to be killed first, but the murderer has the ability to destroy the body and remove the traces, so our investigators can't track down who it is. Serial forced murder case. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. He had heard of this case in his previous life, because the target can destroy the body and remove the traces. The authorities have never caught the murderer. After the first desolation spread, that guy gradually stopped committing crimes until the 9th year. The murderer was not caught, and he became one of the countless unsolved cases after the advent of the God-abandoned game. Very good. Let's just pick this guy. Wang Ye, Wei Yu, and Yi Lu Yan need time to compile statistics. As for An Yu, although the official investigation could not find the murderer, Qin Feng had ghosts under his command. The little girl's transformation into the Yellow Springs evil ghost was a means of tracking based on the murderous aura. Even if the other party destroyed the corpse, they could not cover up the murderous aura at the crime scene. Little girl, it's time to go to Zhanghai City again? Qin Feng smiled. At the same time, he looked at the skeleton thorn and forest bone blade in his backpack. There is an extra double blade mastery skill book. Although she has her own exclusive weapon, she can equip an extra weapon after learning double blade mastery. Just consider it as a reward for her to search for the murderer for me. Half an hour later, outside the ruins of Zhanghai City, in an underground ruins leveling point, a fat man with a big belly, leading his 5 teammates, blocked the way of another 6-person team. The fat man was standing on the steps, looking down from above, with a pair of playful eyes, looking at the cute and weak girl with a ponytail in front of him. Isn't this Xiaoya? I haven't seen you since the godforsaken game came. You have reached level 12. Sorry. This Dark Ruins is the territory of our Bone Guild. To level up and pay some protection fee first. This protection fee can be money or something else, as for what it is. We are all adults. Everyone knows, right? After these words, the girls' team was all indignant. We were leveling here yesterday. How come it became the territory of your Bone Guild? Forget it, Xiaoya. Let's go. Let's go to another place. And the cute and weak girl was Qin Feng's colleague in the original company, young Xiaoya. She looked at the fat man in front of her and bit her lip. Hukibin. I didn't expect that the game was abandoned by God. And you are still doing this kind of business? Which is really disgusting. Hukibin. Fatty Hu is the director of Qin Feng's original company. Hearing young Xiaoya's words, Fatty Hu sneered. What? Are you getting stronger and bolder? Dare to scold your grandpa Hu. Okay. Now you can't even think about entering, even if you pay money. If you don't want to die, get out of here. At the same time, Fatty Hu stared at young Xiaoya, with cruel and murderous light flashing in his eyes. Very good. I found the target again. You ignored me in the company before. Wait until I know where you live and let you know what despair is. Bah. Don't you always like Qin Feng's stupid ba? I really want that stupid bee to see me riding on you. Young Xiaoya didn't know that Fatty Hu was the serial killer who could destroy corpses and wipe out traces. But Fat Hu didn't know either. At this moment, a filmmaker whose name has never been revealed is quickly searching towards where he lives. Hukibin. Male. 35 years old. Godforsaken game codename. High school grades are not ideal. Occupation, human bomb tank. Occupation advanced ones. Current level 13. In the Dark Ruins, Hu Qibin watched the 6 members of Yang Xiaoya's team leave and sneered secretly. Looking back, he clicked on a friend's private chat and said, rather flatteringly, "Brother Gao, we have found a new target. When can we act?" The other party replied leisurely, "After killing the person. Tell me the address." Hu Qibin smiled and replied, "No hurry. No hurry. I'm still investigating. If I'm sure I can take action, I'll notify you and let you deal with the body." Qin Feng returned to reality and communicated with the ghost spirit using the communication crystal ring. He learned that she had determined the whereabouts of the murderer based on the murderous aura at the location of the missing woman. Too efficient. Qin Feng couldn't help but sigh. Just now, he went out to find a monster spawning point with dense monsters. Spawned about 1,000 monsters, and relied on the effect of the Endless Nightmare skill to stack 11 for nightmare resistance. As a result, in a blink of an eye, the ghost had tracked the target. A few minutes later, Qin Feng's communication crystal ring rang, and the ghost sent him a picture. It was the photo of the murderer taken with the communication crystal ring. In the picture, the murderer looked pot-bellied, wearing pajamas, sitting comfortably on the sofa. His whole body was translucent, and he was obviously in the God-Forsaken game. And seeing the person in the picture, Qin Feng was a little surprised. Oh, what a coincidence. Isn't this Hu Qibin? If he hadn't seen this photo, Qin Feng would have completely forgotten this guy. In the previous life, this Hu Qibin licked his face and played the emotional card, wanting to join the Godslayer Guild, but was naturally rejected by Qin Feng. Unexpectedly? Is this guy a serial killer who can destroy the body and cover up the traces? Don't judge a person by his appearance. Qin Feng looked at Hu Qibin in the picture coldly. For 9 years, no one had found out his identity. But this time, this guy was caught by the ghost. Qin Feng believed that the ghost would not make a mistake, since she tracked this guy. It means that the missing women were killed by this guy. Let me think about it. Hu Qibin, his codename in the God-Forsaken game, seems to be something like unsatisfactory high school grades. If you want to drag him into the land of judgment, you can kill him in reality or in the game. In that case, I don't bother to wait for him to go offline. Just ask about his situation in the game. Qin Feng didn't ask Yu about the situation. Instead, he contacted Chen Wuming. Check for me where this guy is. Not so good at high school grades. Chen Wuming? Isn't this guy the vice president of the Whitebone Guild? The Whitebone Guild has recently booked the Dark Ruins outside the city. We should be able to find him at the Dark Ruins. Got it. Qin Feng wrote it on a Sirius and set off directly. The Whitebone Guild was a medium-sized guild in Zhanghai City in the early stage. It was quite powerful, but it was destroyed in the middle stage. As a guild manager, it was not surprising that Chen Wuming knew the information about that guy outside the ruins of Zhanghai City, Dark Ruins. Qin Feng rode on Osiris and arrived here in just a few minutes. He patted Osirio. Just wait outside. I'll be back soon. Osirio. When will you find a female dragon for me? Sun Feng said without looking back. Wait until I find a wife first. Think about it. I am your master after all. How can you find a female dragon if I don't have a wife? Osirio. That makes sense. Soon. Qin Feng entered the Dark Ruins and disappeared from Osirio's eyes. Until then, the dragon suddenly froze. Wait, this human assassin doesn't look like he's looking for a wife. You mean he wants me to find a female dragon? But I have to find him a wife first? That's not right. It was agreed that he would find a female dragon for me. How come it's the other way around? Osirio found that he seemed to have been fooled. Dark Ruins. Hu Qibin was leading the team in the dim ruins, looking for monsters everywhere. His profession, human bomb tank, made him the tankiest tank in the team, and he could fight 3 monsters alone. At this time, he even faced a rotten gold-level monster boss head-on. Fuck! Brother Abin is so strong. He can even fight a gold boss easily. Needless to say, our brother Abin is the best tank in Zhanghai, and the health bonus of this profession is too high. It's worthy of being a hidden profession, plus the gold-level physical talent. Now more than 40,000 blood, higher than the official Holy Shield War King. Just when Hu Qibin was enjoying the praise from his teammates and looking forward to what the golden boss in front of him could drop, suddenly, a shadow blade flew out from the darkness, without any call. Hu Qibin's human bomb tank body. The blood bar was emptied on the spot, and he fell to the ground with a bang. Brother Abin, what's going on? Hu Qibin's teammates were all shocked. Just now they were praising Hu Qibin as the best tank in Zhanghai, but suddenly he was killed in 1 second. Should you be so disrespectful? Wait, it doesn't seem to be the boss's problem. Yes, it's not the first time that the golden boss has been killed. It's impossible to have such a high attack power to kill Brother Abin in 1 second. Are there other people around? But if it's a player, it's even more impossible to kill Brother Abin in 1 second, right? Why think so much? Run away first. Don't be beaten to death by the boss. When Brother Abin is resurrected later, you can ask him and you'll know, right? Without a tank, the group of people dared not fight against the golden boss, turned around and ran. But they waited for a long time. But they couldn't wait for Hu Qibin to be resurrected. And in the friend list, the name high school grades are not ideal is still half lit, which means that he is still online, but not resurrected. Oh my god. What's going on? Aben Geka is resurrected? Online but not resurrected. I haven't heard of this situation. This godforsaken game can also have bug. This group of people was a little confused. When they returned to the place where Hu Qibin had just died, they found that both Hu Qibin and the golden boss were gone, as if they had never existed. This group of people could never have imagined that. When Hu Qibin died this time, he would leave them forever. As for Qin Feng, he was equipped with the Blade of Judgment, and after killing Hu Qibin, he killed the golden monster. Directly cursed the flower to all the bodies in the field were dealt with. Then, he leisurely activated the Judgment Blade and returned to the Land of Judgment. When Qin Feng returned, he found that Ashes was still kneeling on the white jade platform. Seeing him appear, she gave him a gentle smile, and Qin Feng stood on the white jade platform, overlooking the maze in front. Sure enough, Hu Qibin, who was killed by the Judgment Blade, has been teleported to the maze and is looking around with a puzzled look. What's this? Was I killed by the shadow just now? Damn, why did the shadow kill me? But why didn't I resurrect in the hiding place after I died? What the hell is this place? The Land of Judgment. Is it possible that I have encountered an adventure? Hu Qibin's breathing became a little rapid when he thought about it. But he didn't know. Once he came to this place, it meant that he could never go back. Suddenly, he saw a 20-meter-long white-bone dragon flying overhead, and on the white-bone dragon stood a handsome young man in a full set of assassin equipment, looking down at him coldly. Shadow. Hu Qibin frowned slightly, but soon his face changed drastically. Shadow is really Shadow. After all, only Shadow has this mount. But isn't this Qin Feng? Shadow is Qin Feng. Qin Feng is Shadow. How is this possible? Qin Feng rode a Osiris and came to the top of Hu Qibin's head. He looked at Hu Qibin's shocked and unbelievable expression and did not react. For Qin Feng, this guy is gonna die anyway, so there is no need to cover his face in front of him. Qin Feng just checked his attribute panel. The upper limit of the divinity of the Judgment Blade is currently 10 points. When killing someone, you can choose to consume 10 points of divinity and teleport them to the Land of Judgment. So now the divinity of the Judgment Blade in Qin Feng's hand is Dirub 10, which has been consumed to activate the authority of judgment. You still need to consume divinity. So, before the judgment, you need to replenish divinity first. Let's see how much divinity is needed to launch a judgment on this guy. Qin Feng glanced at Hu Qibin below. He raised the Judgment Blade in his hand and checked the operation panel of the Land of Judgment through this weapon. From the panel of the Judgment Land, the terrain of the entire space can be adjusted, and some minigames can be designed to distinguish targets, such as the previous Fugitive Pursuer minigame activities. However, Qin Feng was a little confused. Such a space can be left to him to adjust freely. Designing minigames, defining and dividing targets into groups, these should not be free of consumption, right? But on Qin Feng's operation panel, there is no indication of what needs to be consumed, as if he can operate it at will. Don't worry about this for now. Now to judge Hu Qibin, you need to anchor him first. Then replenish the divinity of the Judgment Blade. Han Feng designed a minigame different from the previous one through the operation panel of the Judgment Land. It's different, but there's not much difference. He just changed the original 20 fugitives to 9. To 19. In this way, it can be distinguished from the previous minigame, even if there are only slight changes in the rules. This minigame can become the unique minigame in the Judgment Land. Otherwise, when anchoring the target, there will be duplication, and the fugitive in the previous minigame will also be defined. Create a fake body illusion. Qin Feng operated on the operation panel. He rode Osiris and placed 99 fake body illusions in the entire white jade maze of the Trial Land. Then he applied the previous rules with one click. Assign the fugitive status to 19 people including Hu Qibin, and assign the pursuer status to the other 81 people. Then, the identity definition is completed. The game begins. When a series of system prompts came into his mind, Hu Qibin was a little confused. It's really awesome. Qin Feng is the shadow. Killing me is fine. But what's going on now? Let me play a minigame. As long as I survive for 30 minutes, I can get a reward. Hu Qibin was confused. He subconsciously wanted to kneel down and beg for mercy, but Qin Feng didn't give him a chance. He glanced at him and flew away. After hearing the system prompt of the game starting, Hu Qibin was nervous and worried. His heartbeat was very fast, and he moved cautiously in the white jade maze, but he didn't know. When the minigame started, he was defined as a fugitive, and what he did was completely unimportant. Next, it was his trial. Qin Feng rode a Osiris and flew back to the central white jade platform. The trial object is the fugitives who are located in the Trial Land, participate in this activity, and are defined by this activity. Among them, this activity specifically refers to the mini-game activity of 19 fugitives and 81 pursuers in the Trial Land, 99 of whom are fake bodies and illusions. Start the trial. Qin Feng stood on the white jade platform. He looked down at Hu Qibin, who was walking on thin ice in the white jade maze. Your trial will consume 10 points of divinity. Are you sure? Confirm. By the way, consuming 10 points of divinity, this should be the minimum consumption for judging intelligent life, because Hu Qibin's level and strength are too weak. The consumption is so low. First, replenish 10 points of divinity to the Blade of Judgment. What made Qin Feng happy was that the Blade of Judgment was worthy of being a gift from the judgment god Ashasis, the top level original primary divine weapon. In the previous life, Qin Feng's mythical divine weapon consumed 9 years of life for every 1 point of divinity replenished. So even if it was ridiculously strong, he would only use it at critical moments. But now, this Blade of Judgment only needs 10 years of life for every 1 point of divinity replenished. Recharge directly, consuming 100 years of life. The divinity of the Blade of Judgment was replenished to 1010. Then, start the trial. When Qin Feng issued the judgment order, his indifferent eyes instantly turned into an endless, chaotic, starry sky. In that starry sky, a three-dimensional, solid, and terrifying chaotic aura of truth language symbol began to be generated. In Qin Feng's view, this truth language symbol really looks like some kind of three-dimensional code. Within the scope of the truth language creation rules, it continues to extend and change, and finally forms a complex truth language character that is only used to define the current Hu Qibin. Then, the trial officially began in Qin Feng's mind. All the experiences and memory scenes of Hu Qibin, from birth to the present, instantly emerged. Damn. Can I actually view all the memories of the target of the trial? Even the memories that he himself does not have? I can fully replay them. Qin Feng was a little shocked. But he soon realized that to judge a person, he naturally had to have a comprehensive understanding of him. It is reasonable to get all the memories of the target right. So, from Hu Qibin's birth, growth, school, work, everything about this guy could not escape Qin Feng's judgment. Of course, Qin Feng was not interested in other memories of this guy. Jumped directly to his recent serial forced killing process. As for this guy's criminal process, Qin Feng can only say that the behavior is particularly bad and the means are particularly cruel. Newborn. To be honest, Qin Feng has killed many more people than Hu Qibin, but in terms of the psychological shadow caused to the individual, it is really not as good as flattery. Okay, then this part. Trial. Start. Qin Feng selected the memory fragments of Hu Qibin's atrocities against 6 consecutive victims, and issued a final judgment on him based on these memory fragments. Instant. Hu Qibin's fat figure in the white jade maze disappeared from the scene. He was teleported to the dark space around the Judgment Land, and could never escape. His consciousness began an endless cycle of torture in one illusion after another. Judgment completed. The basic attribute of the Blade of Judgment increased by 6%. The upper limit of the divinity of the Blade of Judgment increased by 6 points. Do you want to observe the illusion where the target of the judgment is located? Observe the illusion. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. He was still a little curious about the judgment suffered by Fatty Hu. So, Qin Feng chose to observe the illusion. A sunny afternoon, Hu Qibin suddenly woke up and found that he was lying in an unfamiliar bedroom. The half-open window and the curtains fluttering in the breeze made him a little dazed. This? Didn't I just get killed by the shadow? Why am I in some judgment place again? I should still be on the run. Why are you here again? Hu Qibin looked around and found that everything around him was very real. It was as if he had returned to reality. He subconsciously wanted to take out his mobile phone, but found that he didn't have it with him. Just when he wanted to get up and go out to check the situation, suddenly, the bedroom door was violently pushed open from the outside. A muscular man with a burly body suddenly appeared at Hu Qibin's door, showing a disgusting grin and looking at Hu Qibin. This muscular man had a beer bottle in his left hand and a baseball bat in his right hand, which made Hu Qibin very familiar. Wasn't that his former crime tool? Who are you? Hu Qibin was stunned and had an ominous premonition in his heart. Before he could react, the burly muscular man came over in 3 or 2 steps, grabbed his fat body, and threw him on the bed. Oh my god. Qin Feng felt that his eyes were going blind. He quickly exited the illusion. Qin Feng could also predict the next situation. That is, Hu Qibin was tortured to death first, then Hu Qibin will wake up in that room again. Face the same scene again, infinite reincarnation. Torture like hell. Then the question is, why is the perpetrator in this illusion Brother Jie? Qin Feng still has some impression of this Brother Jie, the strong man from Guanggang. The only hidden profession, a muscle warrior. The global ranking in the later period is also in the top 500, which is similar to Gu Yishui's ranking. However, taking action against Fatty Ho, this is the worst time that Brother Jie has been blackened, right? Qin Feng was a little embarrassed, although he didn't know what the default judgment procedure of the Judgment Blade was. In short, Fatty Hu did get the punishment he deserved? Of course. There was another thing that Qin Feng was more concerned about. That was in Hu Qibin's memory. Qin Feng also found another guy. Fatty Hu only forced people to kill, but he didn't destroy the bodies. After each crime, he notified a person named Gao Daxia in the game and asked him to come and deal with the bodies. Even Hu Qibin had never seen that brother Gao. Once, Hu Qibin wanted to wait and see how the other party dealt with the bodies. As a result, when he was squatting in the stairwell, he suddenly heard a sinister voice. Why? Do you want to become a corpse too? Fat Hu was scared to death. From then on, Fatty Hu didn't dare to meddle in other people's business. He just secretly complained. What kind of person is so perverted that he is interested in corpses? With Hu Qibin's knowledge, he naturally didn't know who the other party was. But Qin Feng knew the other party's identity immediately based on Fatty Hu's memory of dealing with the other party and his memory in his previous life. Gao Daxia. Isn't that a corpse collector? Corpse collector. That is the only hidden profession. When Qinfeng obtained the Ancient God's eyeball in his previous life, that guy was already the 82nd top powerhouse in the world. You should know that Qinfeng was only ranked 99th in the world at that time. So far, I have met Guiling, who was ranked in the top 10 in the world in the previous life, and An Yu, whose global ranking in the previous life was basically between 15th and 18th. The others are still a little bit behind. But this corpse collector is really strong in the later period. Qinfeng narrowed his eyes. He recalled the official investigation data on this person in the previous life. It is said that this corpse collector can copy the target's talent by recycling the player's corpse, but can only save one talent at a time. If the corpse is recycled in the game, the copied talent is time limited. But if the corpse is recycled in reality, once the talent is obtained, it can be kept forever. Of course, the higher the target's talent, the lower the probability of obtaining the talent when collecting the corpse. This guy accidentally discovered that Fatty Hu killed people in the early stage, so he used him to kill people several times. After Fatty Hu left, he appeared again and took the corpse away. Isn't this too cautious? If you kill people yourself, there is a possibility of being exposed, especially as the official search officers are getting stronger and stronger. It is even possible that you will be exposed when you kill people. He was caught in the act, but if he waited for others to kill people and he was just collecting corpses, even if he was caught, it wouldn't be a big deal. If I hadn't been able to judge Fatty Hu's memory, I wouldn't have known that this guy was behind these cases. Qinfeng thought about it. In the last life, this corpse collector wasn't even on the official wanted list of Daxia, because this guy was very low-key and had never been caught doing anything bad. However, not being caught doing bad things doesn't mean that he hasn't done bad things. In the last life, there were incidents of strong people being killed and corpses disappearing in many places across Daxia. It's very likely related to this guy, but there's no evidence at all. Qinfeng glanced at the system prompt just now, judging Fatty Hu. I was given 6 points of divinity limit and 6% basic attribute improvement. This cost effectiveness seems okay. You can judge more people to find out what kind of target to judge, and the reward will be more. Qinfeng plans to make the corpse collector the next target of judgment. Qinfeng intends to make this corpse collector the next target for trial. Originally, he had no way of knowing where this corpse collector was. However, from Hu Qibin's memory, he learned that this guy had already regarded Yang Xiaoya as a target, and even confirmed that Yang Xiaoya's residence was still in the apartment he rented when he worked before. He was planning to attack Yang Xiaoya tonight. In fact, for friends or guild members in the previous life like Yang Xiaoya, Qinfeng would not take the initiative to contact them, let alone be a nanny for them. After all, his God-slaying guild has tens of thousands of members, even if they are just good friends. There are hundreds of them. How could Qinfeng protect these people one by one? And Qinfeng's guild recruits people with relatively strong strength, so Qinfeng didn't worry about them at all in this life. This also includes Yang Xiaoya. This girl looks weak and always gives in when encountering things, but her combat power is not weak. If Fatty Hu really wanted to cause trouble for her, she might even kill him. Hu Qibin has already given the address to the corpse collector and said in advance that he would start tonight, although I'm not sure about the exact time. But maybe the corpse collector will go to that place to stake out, let the ghost look around at night. Maybe there will be some gains. As for Qinfeng himself, he will naturally continue to kill monsters and bosses. It was at this time. What Qinfeng didn't know was that an uninvited guest came to the Magic Leaning Tower, the hiding place of Feike Heavy Industry in the ruins of the Magic City. It was a skinny and withered old man, wrapped in a black robe, like an elder of the Soul Hall. When he arrived, the current guild leader of Feike Heavy Industry, Huang Ziqing, quickly appeared at the door with people. Welcome, friend, the corpse collector. Huang Ziqing had a circle of dark circles under his eyes, and seemed to be much thinner than before when he saw the old man in black robe. He directly sent a friend request. Then I sent a private message. You said you can see through shadows and visibility. I'm out on some business, so I can't finish writing during the day. I still have one chapter to post before 12 noon.